there's a plan and then do you want to do this or unless I don't just say, hey, what's up?
The occasional profile picture. That's all I ever see.
I don't actually say, hey, how's it going? What do you do today? I just that just mind numbing. And like if we're going out to dinner, I would do it. But I'm not a I'm not a I'm not a fixer. I don't do that.
Really like texting oh God,
I like texting as a replacement for making a phone call saying, hey, I'm on my way.
right, just go.
Hey, I'm on my way.
Right, something simple that you don't have to wait to hear their outgoing message. Would you like a book?
I don't shoot the breeze on the phone. I'm not a phone talker and I get anxious. And actually when I'm on the phone, I take in the house. If there's nothing to do, like dishes or something else to do, I just walk back and forth in the house.
Yeah, just yesterday.
My thing is just like I actually have issues with my
Good afternoon, this is Dr. Carol Killen coming to you live from Go Theater in the Moines Club. This is Give a Damn Des Moines in the second round. This is Mark Caucus. And so people will be talking about different things. From different perspectives, as if it's a way to show people how the caucus process works. It was supposed to start at 5:30, but again, there's a delay. So stay tuned. It should be getting started fairly soon. People are still getting in here. There are tables outside of this theater that people could do things at, like register to vote if they were not registered or they needed to change their registration because of change of address, change of name, or whatever. And there's another table with Duffy, the Iowa political cartoonist, who has a book out. And unfortunately, I don't have the money to buy one, otherwise I would have, because I've loved his stuff for years. He used to be featured in the Des Moines Register, but then they gave him the shove off, and then he went independent. He does for the local weekly City View, and he still freelances for, he syndicates it.
They might have payphones. I should go. Yeah, I know that at James University, it's the big thing is everybody has a phone.
There are also people who work for some of the campaigns, such as Bernie Sanders, Martin O'Malley. Those are the two that I've seen so far. Had enough already? Oh, okay. It was a photographer who shot a few seconds of video in here. Now she's going outside to shoot an interview.
many people.
My mom told my aunt, we were on the way to see her. She told my aunt she got ready to go to bed. As soon as I got the phone,
I got mine because I started going to Radford, which is 125 miles from
I'm on that edge
5 miles from my apartment in Greensboro.
What's your keyword?
Earlier there was
And I will tell you, I took
another
my
mock
drink
one, but it was about beer.
on the side.
And so the winning beer is being given away free tonight.
Fortunately, I'm thinking
But this Muslim will not partake.
Okay, hey guys, if you guys are not like taking the thing, then you can go ahead and sit down. Sorry.
Or the other thing is just going to be something. And mine, actually. I'm doing yin yoga right now. Like, she used to be a hospital but I'm not going to doctor. I've had some thoughts here.
Again, for those just joining me, this is Dr. Carol Keelan coming to you live from the Come and Go Theater in the Des Moines Social Club. This is Give a Damn Des Moines, the second round. And this time it is a mock caucus. And people are getting their drinks and finding a place to sit. Over there past on that wall are buttons that have been placed with say I give a damn about, and then you write something in the blank space in the middle of the button and you stick it on one of the letters that spell the word caucus. And so I did that. So it would look like this. And you take two of them, you put one on the board, and then you wear the other one.
When you run for
And then there are mock caucus ballots that people are taking and either filling them out or...
Hi, ma'am. How are you doing tonight? Good. Have you decided who to vote for?
My what?
Have you decided who to vote for?
Yeah, I've already finished.
Awesome.
Can I show a blank one to my viewers to see what it looks like?
The blank form?
Yeah, that's all I want to do. I just want to... So this is what there are issues on here. Might not be able to read that, but they're voting on those. And then there's a box to my right to put them in. Yeah, I'm live streaming.
Ah, okay. Hi!
I watched that election return last night.
It was a lot of fun. I learned a lot.
Oh yeah.
Apparently, if you call Newfoundland people Newfies, they find that very offensive. Do not call people from Newfoundland Newfies.
Not if you call the dog that.
No, yes.
In Iowa, having color is color.
We'll have that once we start.
Yeah, it's just like you see to walk in and see they're really cool. So I approve because I worry about
I do remember.
Do you accept chicken scratch on these things?
Yes, as long as I can read some of it.
Okay. Can I chicken scratch on one?
You could, yeah.
Ready to go get this guy here. Can I sneak through here?
All right, guys.
That was my culture shock. I mean, obviously it's quite one or two people. They're not like class. I've already had one student get married while in college and get divorced. So like, I mean, it makes
Can I just drop it in the box?
Go ahead. Go right ahead.
I just filled one of those out.
I
And there's
do
a
not see
spot
her
where I could
unless
write
she's
in,
on.
so I wrote in universal health care. Not that we could provide the health care for the entire universe, but at least this country.
Thank you all for coming. My name is Zach Manheimer. I'm the Executive Director of Des Moines Social Club. Thank you all for being here this evening. This is the fourth event in our Give a Damn series. The series was started a long time ago by Libby Crimmings, who's here somewhere. Tonight we're doing the first mock caucus with Republican rules. Last time we did a mock caucus with Democratic rules. Keeping with the theme, we needed to have beer involved, of course. So I want to talk a little bit about the rules, and I'm going to pass it off to the people who are actually know how to do this. So everyone has a cup, correct? I got America Cup. America. So here's the thing. Let's practice. Every time you hear somebody on stage say the word on your cup, like America, you take a drink. Ready? America. Well done. So there are three other, we've got the economy, we've got reform, and we've got rights over there. So this is more of a fun thing that we're going to do. So every time you hear the word, you take a drink. We're going to have keep tally of how many times each word is said. And then the winning team, so hold on to your cups. At the end, the winning team will get a free beer at the next Give a Damn event. Free beer, America, right?
Not for me.
November 5th. Right back here at Des Moines Social Club in the Come and Go Theater. That event, we're going to have the Democratic Party State Chair, Andy McGuire, discussing, not debating, with the Republican Iowa Chair, Jeff Kaufman, right here on this stage. And so if you bring your cup back, or if you just say that you were part of that team, it should be just fine, and you'll be getting a free beer for that. But tonight, we are going to be debating the top 10 issues according to young people. We've got the Simpson College debate team. They're right over here. Can we get a big round of applause for them? Simpson College for being sponsor of the event, as well as Fire Trucker Brewery in Ankeny, who's providing the delicious beer that everyone's drinking. And of course, the Des Moines Register for sponsoring the series. And I'm now going to hand it off to Kathy, who's going to explain how tonight's going to work. So thank you all once again for coming.
All right. Good evening. Thank you. Thanks everybody for being here. I'm Kathy Obradovich. I'm the political columnist for the Des Moines Register. And so I have been to a caucus or two. But this is sort of a different kind of caucus. We've been to movies where it says based on a true story. Well, this is sort of like the Steve Jobs movie of caucuses, because we're not going to be slavish to the process. We're going to give you a taste of it. And so one of the things that happens at a real caucus is when you come in, we're using the Republican rules here. They're fairly straightforward, honestly. It does not take a rocket scientist to do a Republican caucus in terms of the rules. So that helps because the issues may be, the more interesting part of this. But you get to a Republican caucus and you sign in. Okay, sign in. Very easy. Most of you probably signed in here, right? Second, you have to be registered to vote. You have to have a current registration, and you have to be registered for the party where you want to caucus. So if you're a Democrat, you're at a Democrat caucus, you have to be registered as a Democrat. You have to be in the right precinct as well. So how many of you have never caucused before? Okay, great. How many of you are not registered to vote yet? Okay, very good. But if you're not registered to vote, we will take care of you here tonight. We have the League of Women Voters, and Kathy Cahoon is here from the League of Women Voters, who is going to explain exactly what you need to do. Kathy.
It's very impressive that I saw no hands, but I bet you could find a friend or two that might not be registered. Key thing to remember when you're talking to your friends and maybe old family, democracy is not a spectator sport. And by that I mean, here in this country, we're very, very fortunate we always take to participate in our democracy via our voting. But to vote, you must be registered. And it is so simple. It's a one-page form. It asks simple, basic information. What you need, the form provides information, including Social Security and another form of ID, Social Security card, driver just a different kind of ID cards and that kind of thing. So once you are registered to vote, if you do it at the time here tonight, we can take care of it. Do the form, so it's totally legible. Take the form down to the coroner's office, and after that point in time, they review it. Typically after that, probably 10 days, they will send you an actual card. Submit your bill for the light one of the credit cards, and keep it there, and you need to show that tonight. All right, we're out there in the front there, and for some reason I saw no hands go up. If anybody, one thing I want to call to your attention is that when you initially register, have you moved? Through this process, working with the register, we have signed up over 75 people to register to vote. Most of it has been young people who moved, which I understand we have nieces and nephews, how easy that is to happen. So if you have moved, you are not currently accurately registered, so keep that in mind as well. So just a point of clarification.
Okay, thanks, Kathy. Also, just one thing about voter registration. If you're not registered with the party that you want to register with, you can also do that on caucus night. You can register to vote on caucus night. You can change your party affiliation on caucus night. If you're a political independent, for example, you have to become a Democrat or a Republican to caucus. You can switch back to no party after the caucuses if you want to. But that's something just to make sure that you have an opportunity to participate. So, a little bit more process here. If this were a real caucus, I would have introduced myself to you as your temporary caucus chair. Why am I a temporary caucus chair? Because the permanent caucus chair has to be elected. We also elect a caucus secretary in your precinct. So, unless anybody objects, we're going to dispense with that election, and I'm going to declare myself by decree the permanent caucus chair. All right? Anybody object to that? All right. Do you have an objection? Do you know how to run this program?
What's that?
Okay. I'm going to keep going. Okay.
So I was just having a little fun.
Nobody will object to this part of the program that I'm going to dispense with. This is where the Republicans would normally pass the Lincoln bag, as they call it, and take your donations, which helps the parties run the caucuses. So, if you go to a caucus, you will be asked for a donation. We're not doing that tonight.
They're the cool kids. The cool kids all want to sit down.
Okay, so what's going to There's a paper ballot. You should have picked up a paper ballot on the way in. If you do not have one, scoot back out and get one. Hold on to it. In a real caucus, you would only get one, so you would have to hold on to it. And the issues that are on there are going to be debated by the Simpson College debate team. So what you're going to have an opportunity to do is listen to the debate. And I would encourage you to actually listen to the debate before you mark your ballot, before you make up your mind. Listen to what these folks have to say about the issues. These are not Republican or Democratic issues. This is a nonpartisan caucus. Mock caucus. So listen to the issues. And then you will also have an opportunity, if there's an issue that's really important to you that we're not talking about, to write in an issue. If you choose to write in an issue, I would strongly encourage you to just write one word or two. Because our lovely caucus secretary, Brian Smith over here, who is going to help count the ballots, really needs brevity. Okay? And then after that, after everybody's voted, we are going to actually have a part of a caucus that will actually help you guys to bring up issues that you might want to talk about. And that will be a mini platform debate. So I'll explain that when we get to it. But we're going to talk for a few minutes about platform while we're counting ballots. And then we'll announce a winner, and then everybody will have finished drinking by then, and it'll be all good. So, next I'd like to turn it over to Spencer Waugh. He is in charge of the Simpson College debate team, and he's going to explain how this issue debate is going to work. Spencer.
Kind of hard to see.
My name is Spencer Waugh, the Director of Speech and Debate at Simpson College. And I imagine some of you have stereotypes about what a debate team member looks like. Those stereotypes are largely true.
The others are on the
I'm the luckiest person in Iowa because I'm in charge of 55 very socially awkward students. They're awesome to travel with. We go all over the country, and actually we're the largest team in the upper Midwest. And they tonight are outside of their comfort zone. They are used to debating in a classroom setting, in an academic setting, where they have an hour to cover one issue. And what I asked them to do for tonight is, you have less than an hour to cover 10 issues. They have lots of things they would like to say, and very little time to say it in. Also, two of them in particular said you have to tell them that we're just actors. Meaning, I gave them topics, and if they didn't respond to my email within 6 hours, I assigned them topics. And so some of them, I have a feminist who is going to have to talk about an issue that she does not want to talk about. I have a conservative Republican who's going to advocate for a very liberal idea, and so none of them want to be mobbed personally afterwards. When you engage in academic debate, we have to be able to debate both sides. And so each one of these young people have engaged in academic debates where they understand that how they personally feel on a topic is not necessarily relevant. So we're going to start off by essentially debating one of our first 10 pre-selected topics, and I'm just going to call for a student who wishes to propose that the party platform be amended or added to. And so at that point, we're gonna start with that. We will then have a person who's going to speak in opposition, and then the person who originally spoke for it will give you a few closing remarks, and we're going to move this along as quickly as possible so that we can get through 10 of these topics. So is there a Simpson College debater who would like to propose an addition to the platform?
All right. I would like to add an additional platform. I would add that the party supports the abolition of the Iowa Common Core. So the Common Core is an education standard highlighting the use of standardized testing to prepare youth for a competition in the global marking. However, it's faced a lot of backlash since its rollout, and today I present to you arguments for the abolishment of that Common Core. My first point underneath this is that the Common Core is a tool used by the U.S. federal government to control the states, similar to the way that the federal government would cut the funding of like states' highways to raise the drinking age, Common Core holds a lot of the same power over those states. States would be forced to comply with government mandated standards to receive the money that they need for this other government mandated standard. What we see because of this is a decrease in autonomous states, disallowing states to appropriately cater to the needs of their individual states. All states are forced on a middle ground system, in which states who are excelling academically are forced to teach the same curriculum of states whose school systems are below the standard, hoping to have every state meet in the middle educational value. This devalues the state's emphasis on education, which in end hurts the students, not accomplishing the goals of preparing students for this competitive global market when they aren't even allowed to compete with schools within their own country. So what we're seeing is that this hurts schools in Iowa because we're actually more advanced than, say, other schools in the South. So we're actually having to teach down to our students to keep up with the nation. My second point today is that standardized testing with Common Core de-incentivizes teachers to help specialized students out. So students in America's educational system average about 313 standardized tests by the time they've completed their high school careers. Once a test has been completed, the scores are taken and students are ranked based on the scores comparatively over the students taking them, whether that be average, above, or below the average benchmark. The blame then falls on the teachers based on how that student is done under a system called value-added analysis, meaning a teacher is ranked or paid according to how his students are doing. In theory, this oversight sounds credible. However, when students are predicted to achieve perfection on a test and fall just short of absolute perfection, the teacher is punished. Simpsons like these stop teachers from focusing on the needs of accelerated students and lead them to tutor those who are concerned and will hinder the reviews at the end of the school year. So what you're seeing here is that teachers actually aren't willing to help those specialized students out anymore. They're just trying to get a paycheck. So what we're actually just doing is we're not trying to make teachers teach the top percent. We're trying to get a middle ground so that everyone stays equal. Thank you.
First of all, thank you, Will. One thing Will did not point out, though, is that Common Core is there to help the students. Like, we have young children here, and over here. Abolishing the Common Core would hurt them. This isn't about state government, and this definitely is not about teachers. This is about the students. Abolishing Common Core abolishes equality. Equality that this nation was built on. Common Core should not be abolished because students in Georgia should be being taught the ABCs just like they here are in Iowa. High school students in New York should have the same opportunities to learn how to be competitive in not just the domestic, but also the global market. That's what the Common Core does. Will, I'm sorry you can't recognize that students should have the same opportunities that we have throughout the entire United States, because that's what the Common Core is for. That's what the Common Core allows, and that's why the Common Core should not be abolished.
So, all right, so we talked about schools like specifically, say, Georgia, right? So what my proposition to this plank includes is why should states like Iowa be held back when we're achieving academically because states like Georgia can't do the same things that we do? What Common Core does is it holds us to the same standard as those states. So say states like Iowa, which need to focus on more agricultural and engineering based, why are we being limited because states like Georgia can't do the same thing that we do, right? By doing this Common Core, we're held to standardized testing that shows that we need to be on the exact same page as the entire country, which in theory does mean that we'd be more competitive on a global scale. However, we're just seeing that the standard isn't working, and we're having states like our state of Iowa, which is being held back. So for that, I can only see that we abolish Common Core for the actual good of Iowa. Thank you.
We have another citizen student who would like to approve.
In addition to our platform, I would like to propose a plank. This party should
She might lower the mic to her.
This party should believe that by 2020, 1/3 of energy should be renewable. By 2030, renewable energy should be expanded to 1/2 of total energy consumption. We should therefore do everything possible to incentivize this through use of economic incentives and increased research. The use of non-renewable resources has depleted our Earth of many resources, such as coal and oil, which cannot be replaced. The no such thing as clean coal. Particulates in the air are damaging, for instance, to people with asthma, and they also contribute to developing that condition. Massive use of coal and oil both contribute to an increase in greenhouse gases, which is linked to global warming, which will eventually affect all of us very drastically, making our energy consumption habits as a nation a matter of national security. Currently, though, many of the negative effects are concentrated on the most vulnerable populations around the world. In fact, within America, much of the negative environmental impacts associated with fossil fuel use are over-concentrated on already at-risk populations, such as racially concentrated and poor communities. This makes this not just an issue of long-term national security, but an issue of social justice. The only long-term solution to this problem is to increase our use of renewable fuels. Renewable fuels tend to be environmentally friendlier solutions than the fuels they replace. Thus, we must continue and must escalate our use and development of renewable energy solutions, including but not limited to wind, solar, hydroelectric, geothermal, biomass, and cleaner ways to power our transportation. 50% sustainability by 2030 is a reachable goal if we carefully incentivize the increased development of this sector of our economy, which will not only bring jobs, but will ultimately protect all of us from catastrophe. Renewable energy is something that is important. However, this goal is not adequate because it does not provide enough time for this to actually go into effect. She leaves out the facts. Currently, only 13% of our total energy is because of renewable energy. From 2000 to 2014, half of the use of biofuels and non-hydroelectric energy was doubled. In 14 years, it doubled, and it's still only at 13%. They're wanting a growth of 20% in the next 5 years, but that's not possible. We already have incentives provided for people to use renewable energy, but we're not using it. This is not adequate time. We need to add more years and build onto the plan to make it more attainable. Because 33% by 2020 is not possible. Thank you, Cindy. So in response to this, I would like to say that, yeah, this is a really high goal, and that's true. Unfortunately, what we'll see is that if we don't try and address this problem within a certain amount of years, then this problem can't be fixed. So we may as well have a high goal in the hope that maybe we're going to make it. Because, as she's pointed out, yeah, we do have incentives now, and maybe they are not entirely, it hasn't entirely, but when you increase those use of incentives, then you're going to see a doubling. In the past, we've made it to the moon because we've had high goals as a nation. We didn't get to the moon because we just decided one day that we should do it. It's a hard goal to make 50% by 2030, but we can do it, and we should do it. Otherwise, we are going to be in a lot of trouble. Thank you.
For the record, I told Tegan, the last speaker, to lower the mic before she came out. She didn't listen though. Alright, so what I'm proposing today is this platform, and the party should adopt, is a plank that says that we should increase the infrastructure funding for public transportation in underserved communities across the United States. Now, there are a couple reasons that I believe this. The first of which is that there's currently a huge maintenance and upkeep cost with no funding to match it. Now, the place I like to look for this is Europe. What we can see in Europe is that Europe actually has far less road construction and damage and accidents that are a cause of this than the United States does. And yet, and because of this, Europe is the one that increases their GDP funding to infrastructure and stuff like that. And they have a much higher percentage of this than America does. And we can see an extreme correlation. Because of this, we're able to see that there is more likely to have accidents, more likely to have the costs associated with accidents in America. And then not only this, we can see the population is only growing in urban areas. Now, this has been across the board, but urban areas are experiencing extreme growth. And because of this, we're only going to see this number increase as time goes on. And accidents seem to be something we need to focus on in the future. Not only this, but transportation, especially in urban communities, is essential to job development. Now, when people are traveling to and from jobs, having this transportation availability is actually what
allows them to get to their job and be able to perform in the economy the way it needs to happen. So this provides benefits to the economy, it provides benefits to the society around it, and provides benefits to the job site. So this is something we clearly need to strive for. Not only this, but this lack of funding therefore affects our economic situation and therefore our growth of a nation. So these are the reasons we need to focus on it. And just to make sure everyone drinks, I want to say that we should all reform America's economy.
Does my water count?
All right, so to just kind of counter this, you're going to need two words, which is population density, right? We're nowhere equipped to make such a system that Europe has, just based on the fact that we're not Europe. We're not closely concentrated in the one-year area, right? Like, you're not going to take a train from somewhere in New York, somewhere in California, because that's simply just, you're not going to make enough money. So based off of that, I'm going to also go, he brought forward this point of how, like, Europe increases half of its GDP into this if they spend like 2 times what we would almost. So to kind of like put that in structure is like, where are we going to find this money to put into building a new system and even maintaining the one that we have, right? So we have this giant pie chart of where all the money actually goes inside our government. Most of it to Social Security, some of it to military, others like miscellaneous.
Most of it goes to the military.
It's either A, you start slashing Social Security, B, you start slashing the military, or C, you hike taxes up to pay for the infrastructure program. And that's just simply not going to happen. I mean, Congress today simply can't do anything itself, like we're shutting down the government. What's to say that they're going to unanimously pass a bill to just build a high-speed railroad system? They're not going to. And that also brings me back to the point with the high-speed railroad system, is like there would be no cost benefit to building a system like that, because we simply just don't have people to transport that far distances, right? Like, I personally would never ride any sort of public transportation from Des Moines to Iowa City. There's just not enough to, like, locally, we can't do that, and there's just also not enough pull on a national scale. So for that, I can't see us spending that much money on an infrastructure. Thank you.
All right. Very well put by my opponent / partner, well, whatever he is. But I have 2 main responses. The first of which is I completely agree. No one's going to take roads from random location in Iowa to another random location in Iowa. Like, there's no train or high-speed railway system that is going to cover that, and people are going to actually supply the funds for it. This is why I think we need to focus on urban areas where they're particularly lacking, and they have been lacking in the past and probably will continue to be lacking in the future, as this is where most jobs are, this is where most people need transportation, and this is where most people lack the transportation they need. Then my other response is that while Will likes to claim that Social Security and the military are the only 2 places the government can take funds out to pay for this, there are numerous other places I think we can find perfect examples where I think that our money would be much better served benefiting the economy in a direct route by providing for this transportation.
So I'd like to add the plain staff's platform of endorsing a stipulation that would ask the Department of Agriculture to require charcoal filtration walls to reduce nitrate content in local water sources. So first we have to look at what the harms that occur from this. We have to look at the harms that come from the increased amounts of nitrates within our water. So we can look to what the EPA states, and they say that infants below 6 months who drink water containing nitrate above the excess of the maximum contamination level could become seriously ill, and if untreated may die. We also see harms to pregnant women because of this nitrate within the water. So obviously we have to think of what is the most logical and economical way that we can address this issue today. So we can see that when we add charcoal filtration walls, this is a cost-effective and easily regulated way to deal with the issue. So basically what this would have is that it's easy to install these, and we see these occurring within Asian countries. They have used this certain method of charcoal that has been very successful in eliminating nitrate and just general, like, anything within the air or the water, and it does that on a cheap scale. So when we can see that we can make this water safe and we can install these walls, we can look to what CNN says, and that they say that these are far more cost effective than other solutions because they last longer and they're much better for the environment because it reduces the need for large machinery to do the filtering. So when we see that we're using these charcoal filtration walls instead of this heavy machinery and things like that, we're going to eliminate a lot of costs, and we're going to be doing it in a much better way for the environment. So once filters, we will be able to minimize the harms to infants and pregnant women, making the drinking water safer for everyone, especially here in Iowa, because that's where we see this issue coming up a lot. So, charcoal filtration wells gives us a cost-effective, easily regulated, and safe way to minimize the harms of runoff fertilizer use in farming.
Well, I have two quick responses to what she said, and then I have a couple of points that I think need to be brought up on their own. Now, first is the potential health problems that arise to this. Now, first off, this is a fairly new issue that's come up and something they haven't done extensive studies on. Nitrate is something they've actually believed a couple years ago directly linked to cancer, and this is clearly unproven in today's society. And so there's no reason to know, like, for sure what nitrate is actually a cause of, and so we probably shouldn't jump to any immediately conclusions prior to actually knowing what it's actually about. Now, under this charcoal filtration, did you say we were following Asia in this policy? I don't remember.
I said that Asian countries had like kind of gone along this path of using charcoal filtration and have had benefits.
And so Asia typically isn't where we want to look to for environmental advocacy based on their past performance, and so that's something we need to keep in mind here. Not only this, but this charcoal filtration is actually going to cost more money. While it might be more cost effective than other alternatives, it's less cost effective than doing nothing, which we're not sure it actually has any harms in the first place, so there's no reason to increase this money, which is going to have to be taken out somewhere else. Then a couple of other points that nitrates are mainly found in fruits, so they can't be too harmful if the banana has a bunch of nitrates in it. Not only this, but I read a statistic that said that 95% of your saliva has nitrates in it or something along those lines. And lastly, it's already highly regulated by the EPA. In fact, there are two main acts that support this. One is the Safe Drinking Water Act, so I feel like they should have things under control.
Just to make it sound a little interesting.
And the other one is the Emergency Planning and Community Right to Know Act. I don't know about that one, but they said it covered it, so. All right.
Okay, so let's first address the fact that Paul is basically advocating for us to do nothing for this issue that we are seeing within Iowa. So, like I said, this is a very cost-effective method that we could use to eliminate this issue. He's also saying that, like, we haven't looked into the health problems potentially, and then he says that the EPA regulates it. The EPA is also the one who gave you the statistic that said that it does harm pregnant women and is bad for infants under 6 months. So we can see that there is enough research on this for government agencies to realize that it is a problem. And we can see that it's especially a problem in Iowa because of the fertilizers we use in farming that go into the runoff water, then into our drinking water. And then it gives you the thing that you should not look at Asia. Obviously, yes, China and lots of other Asian countries have a lot of smog and lots of that stuff. But when you can see that when they did implement these methods, they did see fast improvements. We can implement it and it would be a great thing. Then he just spews a bunch of nonsense about fruit and stuff.
I would like to add this party platform. This party should increase the Supplement Nutrition Assistance Program funding. It should be done for 3 specific reasons. First, children will see the largest benefit. Secondly, it decreases health issues. And thirdly, more funding will in return reduce the level of fraud we see in the program. My first argument is that SNAP spending should be increased so it helps children. According to the Center Budget Policy Priorities, it is the biggest child nutrition program. It helps an estimated 22 million children get the nutritional nourishment they need on a daily basis. While half of the SNAP users are children, if the funds are increased, their total welfare will increase. If not, they will be food insecure, leading to poor physical health and behavioral and psychological conditions. These negative effects of food insecurity lead me right into my next point. Reducing food insecurity with more spending for the SNAP program will increase health. Feeding America reports children without enough food will have more hospitalization, a higher risk for chronic illness, oral health problems, and also have poor physical health, which can lead to lack of engagement with their peers. Third, increasing SNAP funding will in return reduce the level of fraud. According to a 2014 article in the New York Times, there were cases where people would sell their food stamps in order to buy alcohol and other illegal substances. More spending in the SNAP program will allow government agencies to step up and have officers to track spending, conduct undercover operations, work with other agencies, and ultimately reduce fraud. For these reasons, helping children, assuring health, and reducing fraud, this party should increase funding for the Supplement Nutrition Assistance Program.
Okay, so there's a few problems with my opponent's plan in increasing funding. To start off with, they don't talk about the type of food that children will be receiving. With the money, it doesn't specifically go to having healthy food, so you're not actually necessarily increasing their health because they could just be eating junk food. And then if you were to increase funding in something like the Fear Reduced Lunch program, which is a much better alternative, you would be ensuring that you're eating healthy food, and you're also eliminating fraud completely because there's no responsibility of parents to, or you're guaranteed that the food they're eating is healthy, unlike at home where they could just be eating chips or cookies because those tend to be cheaper things than fruits and vegetables. Currently, about 50% of students actually take part in free or reduced lunch programs. So if you were to increase funding, then you could increase funding over the summer where you could pay for buses to go pick up kids, and then you would ensure that they get 2 meals, breakfast and lunch, unlike in SNAP where you would only get dinner and maybe breakfast depending on how it worked. Once again, you eliminate fraud, so it's a much better alternative and just has better options.
Thank you, Sydney. The first thing I'd like to address that you brought up is the type of food that would be purchased. Part of America is keeping freedom of the choice for the consumer. If you eliminate what they can buy, you might be eliminating different freedoms that parents have to know what's best for their children. Like take for example an allergy. If someone's allergic to fruits and vegetables, like I know you are when we eat lunch every day, they may not be willing to eat those and then in return not getting the nutritional benefits they need. Secondly, you brought up nutrition being supplied with the breakfast and lunch at schools. That would be very expensive, and right now our government cannot afford to be spending money that we simply don't have. Buses not only require gas, but drivers, and if we're feeding them breakfast and lunch in the summer, then we also need teachers and people to facilitate the students in between the meals. This is why the Supplement Nutrition Assistance Program should have more spending and not be looked at for alternatives. Thank you.
The next area I'm going to propose is that the party should adopt a plank that agrees with the imprisonment of Kim Davis and say that it was, in fact, a just decision. Alright.
Kim Davis
Well, firstly, there's a couple of background info that we need to know. First off, Kim
refused
Davis clearly was a Christian. I don't think anyone denies that.
sign off on
And I think we also all agree that she was in a government
and she went
office
to
and a
jail for
position
it.
of authority in this government office with the right to decide certain areas or certain aspects of other people's lives. Now, this specifically dealt with the marital aspect, whether agreeing to give marital license to people that, or to specifically homosexuals in affiliation. Now, what Kim Davis did was let her religious beliefs alter her job. Now, in some ways this is fine, but however, when it deals with the government, and the government actually being able to give people the rights they've actually been granted by the Constitution and by the law and been ruled on by the Supreme Court, then she's using her position of authority to take away people's rights. It is no longer denounceable as freedom of religion. So the fact that she allows this to have people to go against, or that she doesn't allow people to go against her religion, she's actually infringing on people's freedom of religion themselves. Not only this, but she is putting her own rights or her own belief system above somebody else's. And when she does this, she infringes on their rights, and it's no longer just in her decision making.
Lovely speech, my teammate. So we should not be talking about Kim Davis. She doesn't need to be a martyr, and she doesn't need to be a scapegoat. I wrote a lovely speech. I'm sure he was lovely, rebutting this. And I'm not going to be using it. Also, I did not believe it. So instead, I'm going to be talking about something that is much more important. Instead, I am going to be advocating to add a plank that it means that we would be respecting fair pay. Fair So recently in California, for instance, they passed a law called the Fair Pay Act that went really far in advancing this issue. Their specific law is something that it punishes any attempt to, it punches anything that like goes back against women when they step forward for this law. It also has a piece where if you work one job and you're getting paid less than someone who's working a job that is of similar skill, that then they can argue that they should be paid similarly. So what we see here is that it is 2015 and it is time for everyone to have a fair wage for their work, whether they are a woman, whether they are of any race, whether they have a disability, whether they are LGBT. All of these things should be protected by law, and it is now time for this to be put into effective legislation.
Alright, well, Tegan has effectively put me in a very awkward position.
Sorry about that.
That's alright. Alright, well, we have this fancy thing in debate we call a permutation. Now, what a permutation is when we realize our opponent actually has a very good idea also. And so what we say is, you're right, that's a great idea. Let's do that idea, and we'll just do them both. Why not? We can all win, right? So excellent work, team.
So we would like to add the plank, this party should support an initiative to federally fund 2/3 of the total tuition at all undergraduate higher education institutions. This would level out the playing ground for all undergraduate students and it would improve the economy as the result of entrepreneurship, buying houses, and starting families earlier. 9% of students from poor families go on to earn their bachelor's degrees compared to the 77% who come from wealthy families. Tuition costs are one of the main reasons that keep lower income students down. The costs of education are too high and they cannot pay to further their education. Having the government pay for 2/3 of their schooling for everyone would level the playing ground. Students from lower income families would be able to go to school without the burden of attempting to pay off their student loans for the rest of their lives. Another advantage to supporting this would be that it boosts the economy. Less and less college graduates are starting new businesses as a result of this overwhelming debt. They're forced to go to the highest paying position they can find instead of going to jobs that are creative, innovative, or related to public service. Helping pay for more college would allow students to explore many options out of college and would lead to new businesses and new ideas. Having less student debt would also improve the housing market and economy because people right out of college would be able to buy houses and start families at a younger age. Adults right now, right out of college, have been pushing back starting families a little bit every year and pushing back buying a house a little bit every year. This is because young adults want to feel secure before they buy their first house or start a family, but are unable to because of their massive student debt. Supporting this initiative supports putting money back into our nation and providing opportunities to those in lower class income. Having the federal government pay for 2/3 of total tuition for undergraduate education will allow students to explore more right out of college and will encourage creativity and entrepreneurship and will allow college graduates to start their adult lives sooner without fear of being in debt for the rest of their lives. This program would invest in the next generation in charge and would encourage more students to go to college. Thank you.